to America. Starring the Whiskey Novice.
Welcome, my friends, and welcome to a new series with me, the Whiskey Novice. Thank you for joining me for review number 193. It's part one of a series where I have went once again back to America. I'm going to look at some bourbons and ryes just for 4 reviews. A couple of bourbons, a couple of ryes. This is one that has sat in my collection for a while. Four Roses single barrel. I don't want to say too much about Four Roses just yet. I'll get to probably some of what I want to say later. Probably some of what I will forget. This one, let's see. This is one of their single barrel. Okay, let's get to the facts. Let's get to some bourbon facts, shall we? That are happening here. So Four Roses, this is a straight bourbon. So straight away, what we know is there'll be no colour added to that. So that's natural colour. That's one of those rules. Bourbon must be at least 51% corn by law. This one, Four Roses mash bill, 60% corn, 35% rye, 5% malt. As far as I know. That's what I've read about this one. Bottled at 50% ABV, 100 proof. This one, this is batch variation. So look, unless you've got this one, yours is going to probably taste slightly different. So this review almost becomes a little redundant, but I mean, if you've hung around, thank you very much for it. This one, my eyesight has Warehouse 55, batch number 50-50 or 50-50I. So that's a very, very brief look at this one. Four Roses there in Kentucky. I fell in love with Four Roses when I had their small batch quite early in my whiskey journey. Aside from this review, a little very, very quick history of my whiskey journey was I began with bourbon, and I began with the cheap bourbons. But bourbon I've always had a soft spot in my heart for bourbon. It's just stuck around, but a good bourbon will always impress me. I don't tend to stick to just Scotch whiskey, Irish whiskey, Indian, Japan, I like to spread it around and try whiskies and bourbons from around the world. Whiskies, and so Four Roses, as I said, early on in my journey. Let's get into this, shall we? Keep sentiment aside till later. Starts off quite sweet and perfumed. Sharp and was no surprise, oaky. All the caramels and vanillas that you'd expect, yeah. It's all there. Slight hint of aniseed in the background. And once again, not unexpected, acetone. Sharp. There's a reason why this has hung around a long time in my collection. Not a lot of body in that nose. It's just what I get in the nose of this is what I have come to expect from bourbon. Vanilla, caramel, oak. And not an awful lot else going on here. It's actually, since day one with this bottle, and I have worked my way down to here, I found it disappointing. Now that's on the nose, so I'm laying everything out in front of you already. So let's see what the palate brings. Much rounder, softer, sweet, deep palate than the nose would suggest. The nose in this suggests that it's going to be weirdly short, sharp, and just sweet and acetone and all of those sharp notes. But it's such a round, soft palate initially. Let's get back in. The perfume, the vanilla, the oak. Sharpness is at the back still. It's still soft and sweet. Dusty corn. Yeah. Dusty corn and custard powder, which I suppose to a certain extent are fairly similar. %. Doesn't necessarily feel like it. It spreads well, it coats quite well. More aniseed on the back of the palate, goes a little dry, but you know, there's definitely more going on in the palate of this than there is in the nose. Once again though, a lot of what's going on is to be expected of bourbon. It could be softer once again, it could be rounder once again. That finish, long, aniseed, dry, dusty corn. Oh, that's an awful lot of what I said in the palate, but it's just carrying right through to the finish. It's all right. The nose is disappointing. The palate improves 50%. The finish doesn't change an awful lot from the palate. I'm not going to add water. I did during my tasting notes. It does round it off a little. Does it improve it? Not terribly. I don't tend to add a lot of water to bourbon. Just doesn't necessarily work. It drowns very simply. Do you know, I can't say an awful lot more about this without going into my suggestion for an alternative, so I won't. We'll just leave it there. Yeah, so what was I going to suggest then as an alternative? Well, I did say earlier on about falling in love with Four Roses, and this will require a little bit of novice magic. I fell in love with Four Roses because of their small batch. Ring! This one. I don't know, why did I not replace it if I loved it that much? Well, I did love it that much, but I started to move just on to different bourbons. And probably if I seen the small batch at the right price at some point, I maybe will pick up another bottle. But there's just so much whiskey. I mean, I want my journey to move forward. Journeys tend to move forward. They don't tend to move back a lot. When you fall absolutely head over heels in love with a whiskey, you replace it, you keep it in your cabinet, and you replace it every time. Four Roses small batch I liked a lot. Did I fall head over heels in love with it? Nah, not really. But and this is me sort of going backwards a bit, because really, if you've probably, like most people, if you've bought the single barrel, it's probably because you've had the small batch, but you may have bypassed the small batch and went, I'll try Four Roses single barrel, because this is around the 40 to 45 pounds mark, the single barrel. The small batch is around the 35 pounds mark. And just for me, the small batch is a better whiskey. It was more balanced. once again, and I said it at the start, this single barrel from Four Roses is quite simply that, single barrel. This is Warehouse 55, barrel number 50-5I. Your bottle will most likely be different. This is about 5 years ago, 6 years ago maybe, 4 years ago, don't know. It's a few years back, this bottle of single barrel. Yours might be better, might be worse. But all I'll say is that personally, I've said it from day one, I far preferred the Four Roses small batch to the single barrel. There. Let's take that one away again. Single barrel, all right. Just all right. There are better bourbons out there for the same price. I do like Four Roses, but I liked the small batch more. I wouldn't buy another bottle of this. I won't replace this. Even, it would take a lot of convincing for somebody to say, but this batch, such and such a batch is much better. I'm convinced. I'm sure there's better batches than this. Maybe this was a bad batch. Maybe, I don't know. But either way, I won't replace it. There, that simple. Thank you very much for joining me. Very much appreciate it. I'll be back the next time with something slightly different. Thank you very much to my patrons, should you wish to join that group. The details are in the video description below, and I shall leave a little video link up here for more information on my patronage. There we are. Listen, I do appreciate you joining me. Look after yourselves, look after each other. Here's to your good health. Cheers.
Hey, thanks for watching my video. Please click and subscribe to be notified of further content.